Hey guys, today we've got an awesome guest, a young lady who's done adventures that make us all very enviable, Charline Rabota. We're very happy to have you with us today, Charline. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you
Charline,
very much for having me.
a pleasure. Charline, wow, I don't even know where to start with you, really. Well, where are you at the moment?
So I'm currently in France. I'm here in the mountains, very close to the border with Italy and Switzerland, and waiting for the next adventure.
Awesome. Awesome. So, the first thing I wanted to know, so I've been following you for quite a while on social media now, and I want to know, like, how did this idea even start?
You start with a very toughest question. Well, actually, too many things. So to be very like, okay, I think it was like, yeah, maybe 2018. I had like, sadly, I lost my cousin and I realized it's very cliche, but it's everything, all of this shaped my life. I realized that life was very short and I used to, save money and I was like, oh, we never know. So I save money and I save money and I save money. And I was like, we never know what. Like the only thing we're sure about is that we are going to die, all of us. And I'm here like making money, saving money and not doing much with my money because I hate shopping. I don't like to go to restaurants. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I'm a very boring girl. Not joking. And then I was okay. Now, for what? And then when my cousin passed away, that was very hard for me because he was very young and I was okay. I need to do something. So I started to travel in the Middle East. And one day I told my boss, I was like, listen, I want to take like a year off and I want to go to Africa. And he's like, but why Africa? I'm like, I just saw a documentary about Ethiopia and I want to go to Ethiopia. So I went to Ethiopia and
Yeah.
Ethiopia, I've got goosebumps, changed my life. Like in the middle of like the Omo Valley in the south part of Ethiopia between Sudan, Kenya, and Ethiopia, I realized, okay, you were saving money, and these guys, they are from another world, and probably they have so much to tell you. So I kept on traveling, and I flew to Joburg, and I went to Soweto, and I'm in my family. They are a big fan of Johnny Clegg, so when I was in Soweto, I started to speak with Zulus and Koshan and stuff, and I was like, my, I love it. Maybe I can be the white Zulu woman. Like, so I kept on dreaming, and I
Yeah.
want to go to the Natal, so I've been to the Natal. And then I rented a Toyota Hilux with a
Okay.
company in Joburg and with a rooftop tent. I've never seen that in my life because we don't have that in Europe. We start having that in Europe, but at the time we didn't. And I was like, that is so cool. And then I kept on traveling to Namibia and Botswana, and then I got stuck because of COVID. And I was okay. So then the guys, they had to take the Hilux back from me. And then I was here in Gaborone, sitting in the middle of the capital, doing nothing. And actually, while I was doing nothing, my heart was busy falling in love with Africa. So I can't go back to Europe. It's not possible. I can't. I literally, genuinely can't go back to Europe. I'm not European. I don't feel European. Maybe I've never been European. Maybe I'm African. And so, and then I had to be repatriated because they like, oh yeah, Africa is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be civil wars everywhere. Actually, it was safer than in Europe, but anyway.
Yeah.
And so I got back to London where I used to work. And for like almost 2 years, I worked my ass off. Sorry. I worked so much. And I was, okay, you want me to go back to Europe?
Yeah.
I will buy my car, first car, and I will build it and I will drive back to Africa. And I kind of
Okay.
did.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't even know where you have the to do that. I mean, I used to live in Germany, right? And I always promised
Yeah.
myself that when back to Africa, that I'm going to drive back. That didn't happen because from the time I got to Germany to the time I left, I had three more children,
Yeah.
and a house. how life goes. But it's always been something that I've wanted to do, what you've done. And that's why I think when I started following you online, I was like, wow, this girl's actually doing it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was telling you that when I was like younger, like my dad was listening to Johnny Clegg and stuff, but that's the only things I got from Africa. We've never been to, I don't know, like a real African country or anything like that. Never. So
Yeah.
I just saw this documentary about like Ethiopian tribes and I was like, let's try that, you know? And and yeah, I would say Ethiopia completely changed my life because it changed
Yeah.
everything, every little thing.
Yeah. I was very fortunate a couple of years ago, and that was kind of an amazing time to meet him. And my dad is actually
Wow.
friends. Tony Clegg was in a band called Juluka. Did you know
Yes,
that?
yes,
So
of course.
so his partner in Juluka is called Sipho Nkunu, and my dad is a friend of Sipho Nkunu. So that's
Me,
pretty
no
cool.
way.
Do you know what Juluka means
I
in
actually
Zulu?
don't. No?
No, sweat, like to
What? What
sweat,
did you say?
sweat, like when you sweat. Yeah, that's what
My,
Juluka.
I didn't even know about it.
All right, so
My,
okay,
love it.
you watched this documentary and you decided that you didn't want to just earn money and make money, so you decided to go on this crazy adventure.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, just let's go there and and I don't know, like when you're like in love with someone, you can't really explain. When it's like pure love, I think you can't
Mm.
really explain. And the bond I have with Africa, the fascination I have about Africa, I can't really explain because
Yeah,
it's just something I feel deep inside me. And I feel like maybe in a very old life, I was maybe African or something. I don't know. I wish.
I when I lived in Germany, I never had that feeling. But I've heard a few people saying that when they come to Africa, they have that feeling. But when I lived in Germany, I met a very interesting guy. He was actually the nephew of King Haile Selassie. His
No,
Yeah, so his name was Asfa Warsan Azarati, and he wrote a number of books that became quite famous in Germany. And I had
my,
the of meeting him a few times, and one of the things that he said to me that I'll never forget is that nobody can explain your home better than a visitor who stayed.
it says it all.
And
Yeah, I get it.
perspective on Africa is very valuable because you see it with fresh eyes. And I think that that is quite amazing. And with that in mind, can you try to, can you try and articulate that? I mean, you've explained your love for it, but what is it? What more is it?
It's so hard to say. I think, also Africa, it's the symbol, I think, for me, actually, at least,
Mm,
it's the symbol of the creation of humanity. Because
mm.
in Ethiopia, for example, it was not random at the end. I went to Ethiopia first because it is where life started in a way. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and also it's very funny. Like, I know I'm from the Western world. I hate this term, but Western world anyway. People here, they think they invented everything. They think they know better than anyone else in the world. They think their sense of evolution is the right direction for everybody else on the planet. I think these guys are so damn wrong. I think they don't know anything.
yeah,
Before when I was a little girl, I remember my teachers at school, they were like, okay, guys, listen, I'm going to teach you life and I'm going to show you how it works. I'm sorry, but before I went to Africa the first time in Ethiopia, it was a lie. It was not how life works. Life works the way you understand life is only if you go to Africa. I know it's probably because of my fascination. Maybe I'm not very humble with that, but I promise you, We are so wrong thinking Africa is, in a way, stupid or dumb or just following the rest of the world. It's not. It's way more stronger than any other part in the world. And one day, these guys are going to discover that it's going to be big. I promise you.
So, I mean, so the essence of your experience in Africa, is it the people? Is it the wildlife? Is it the landscape? What was it that made the biggest impression on you?
I think first it was the smell. Sorry. I think it was the smell. The smell
Yeah.
of Africa is very different. There is something so, I don't know, like coming into your veins and stuff. It's weird. And then I would say the way the relationship between African people and time, the way they see time is so the opposite of how we see time in the Western world. For them, time is money. It's so precious. In the Western world, it doesn't count. Yeah, like we never have time. It doesn't exist here. So I like the idea of time through an African people eyes. And also the wildlife is very funny again, but we always criticize Africa does that and that and that, and they don't know that and that. But it's the only region in the world, the only continent where wildlife is so abundant. The rest of the world, the USA, they killed most of them. Europe, the same.
Yeah.
And in Africa, they could conserve most of the wildlife. I mean, of course, we have so awful things going on, especially with rhinos and elephants and the pangolins and stuff, and the mountain gorillas. But apart from that, African people conserve the wildlife so much compared to other parts of the world. So all that make my love for Africa even stronger every time.
So do you, from your impression, from your travels in Africa, do you see state of the environment as being threatened, as being healthy, as being protected? How do you see it, having been to all the places you've been to?
In Africa, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very tough subject because, in a way, I think the way African people in all the places I've been, the locals are so aware about the threats about the environment. I mean, I don't know if they really know about what's going on in the world, but it looks like they know how to deal with wildlife and they know how to, because they've been dealing with that the whole, like always. But at the same time, they also put themselves at a threat for wildlife and environment. So it's very, I don't know if you can say in English antinomic, but it's very contradictory. I don't know if you see what I'm saying.
You mean that they understand that they are themselves in danger, or how do you mean it?
Well, I would say, in a way, you can see, like, for example, in Uganda, you've got many hotels now being very environmentally responsible. So they're very aware about the materials used to build buildings and stuff like that. So they're trying their best to match with the environment without damaging the environment. But at the same time, there are so many people trying to survive. Not most, some of them are sadly, they need to become, I forgot the name just now. Merde.
Good. Say it in French, in Europe, in English.
Braconnier. Shit, man. Sorry. No, I forgot the name. Oh, putain, it's been too long. I'm in France now. The rangers, and the contrary of the rangers, the
poachers.
Yeah. Yeah, the poachers. So you have, on one side, you have the people being very aware and trying to fit with the environment, trying to be, trying their best to protect where the environment and the places where they're coming from. But at the same time, you've got also people trying to survive. And some of them, they survive in a way we don't understand. In a way we blame them, but we don't really understand the problem at the beginning. The problem at the beginning, I'm not saying 100% of them, right? But a lot of them, they try to survive, and money is very attractive. So, it's very contradictory. You see what I mean now?
Yes, I understand what you mean. Yeah, yeah. So, a part of I always wear two hats, right? So on one hand, I'm very involved in conservation. So I help to develop conservation projects, and I get funding for conservation projects and so on. And then on the other hand, I'm also involved in tourism to Africa. So for me, I also get this impression that the message is getting through to African people in different African countries about the importance of sustainability and all of these. But a lot of this terminology is first world terminology or Western world terminology or
Yeah.
even English terminology. And when you've got everyday battles to fight, you can't bring first world solutions to a third world issue. Right? And that's not meant in any derogatory way. But I do find that the top-down approach in conservation is problematic, rather than the bottom-up approach, which is what you're saying. There is actually a term. It's called technical ethnical knowledge about using people's knowledge to help them better their own environments instead of coming with a solution and looking for a problem.
Yeah. But also, how do you want people from the Western world to find solution about a place they've never lived in?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is a contradiction, and it's something that I deal with quite often. The people who have the financial means to make an impact also want to have a say in that impact. And from their perspective, you can understand it. But there is limited expertise. And this is a contradiction. And I think to a large extent, it's why we're not finding the solutions that we require in a hurry, because there's still a lot of decoding that needs to take place between the people on the ground and the people who want to come in and try and,
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Well, okay. Completely changing subject. Tell us about Rafiki. I love that.
You really want to make me cry? Oh my gosh. Every time I talk about Rafiki, I end up like, okay.
And so let's start with the name. I know what Rafiki means, but why don't you tell everyone what Rafiki means, and let's go from there.
Okay. So I was looking for it because when I bought my Hilux, that was my very first car. I never had a car before. So Rafiki is my very, very first car ever. And when I bought it, I was like, okay, it's a Hilux. It's a white Hilux, but it looks like other Hiluxes and stuff. But mine has got a soul. Mine is my travel partner. So when you are a soul, you need a name, right? So I was like, okay, I need obviously an African name because it was only about Africa in my head and in my heart. And it's still actually the case. And I was okay, let's focus. And many people are like, oh yeah, the Lion King. It's not because of the Lion King. It's never been because of the Lion King. Never. I wanted a Setswana name from Botswana. But the thing is like all the names, they're like they're very hard to pronounce. It's not very nice when it's like, I'm not saying all the names, but the words I was looking for, they were not very nice when you hear them. So I was like, it can't be a name. It can't be a name. So then I was like, and then I was like, okay, I need an African name to say my protector or my friend. And I've been looking for in Setswana, in Zulu, because I also wanted Zulu. And then I was like, okay, it doesn't work. It's not nice. And then I was like, okay, Swahili,
Yeah.
Rafiki.
Yeah.
So there it goes. It means my friend, my protector. And also in Arabic, it means the same thing.
Okay. All right. Of course, because the Swahili is largely influenced by Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually learning quite a lot about Zanzibar and that sort of archipelago and about the Arabic.
Yeah, it was Oman. It was part of Oman before the Sultanate of Oman.
Yeah. So I'm a Land Rover fan, but
Nobody's perfect.
And can we not be friends anymore?
I'm joking.
No, but I mean, honestly, I think you made a best decision there because those Hiluxes. And have you ever had an issue with that vehicle
No,
going on?
never. But also, I want to mention that I got a Hilux because of the car I rented when I was the first time in Africa,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's because of the car they gave me. They gave me a single cab Hilux,
Mm,
a very modern one. Mine is old. Rafiki is old,
yeah.
and I had no issue. And of course, it was just like a 2 month adventure, but still, I had no issue. So I was like, okay, I like this car. I feel comfortable with. So I want the same car. So that's why I got a Hilux.
And how many kilometers did you travel through Africa?
So through Africa, it was 45,000 kilometers.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, not that
And
much.
without, without too much detail, like what sort of route did you follow?
I didn't. So, okay. At the end, the road I follow, it was the road of my heart. I know it's very cliche and it's like, okay, she's very annoying with the heart, but it really how it worked because,
Yeah.
like if you look at my roots, I promise you, it looks like shit. Excuse me for my French, but it looks like shit because it's like going to Kenya, going back, going to the same countries again, and then going to Lesotho, and then blah blah blah. It looks like shit. It's the worst aesthetic route ever. But I was not looking again. I was not looking for something aesthetic or for something nice or for something marketable or whatever. I was just, driving in Rafiki on the road, talking to locals. And sometimes people were like, oh, have you been there? No, never. Go there. There is my cousin. Okay, I'll go there. So I went there and then I went back. And then they're like, oh, you should do that again. Okay, so should I go back to, I don't know, Malawi? Oh, okay, I went back to Malawi. So actually the route is I started in South Africa and then I went to Botswana and then I went to Zambia and then I drove the north part of Tanzania to Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya. And when I was in Nairobi in Kenya, I wanted to go back to Ethiopia, right?
Mm.
But the thing is, like at the time, Ethiopia, and I think it's still the same, the case now, they changed the entry rules for imported cars. And they were asking the people, tourists, to pay the value of your car at the border.
Wow.
And I was
Okay.
like, I won't do that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't afford it anyway. So I'm like, okay. So it was very painful because I really wanted to make my way to Ethiopia. I had good friends there in Addis Ababa and also in the Omo Valley, but I was okay another time. And so I had to drive back slowly to, the south part of the continent. And I was tempted to drive through the western coast. But the thing is, like, at the time, I was not attracted by the western coast, to be very honest. I'm sorry if
Mm.
I'm rude, but that was the
Wow.
case. It's not the
Mm.
case anymore, but it was the case at the time. I was not attracted by the western coast. It was too much problems and corruptions and stuff. And I was like, okay, I was so tired already. I was like, I can't assume that. So I went back to South Africa then.
Okay. And how long was this driving around Africa following your aunt?
19 months across Africa. Yeah.
Let's talk about something that I get asked very often. All right. When I'm
Okay.
dealing with come on trips to Africa, one of the first questions they always want to bring up is Africa safe? Now, you are a young lady on your own traveling through Africa for 19 months over 45,000 kilometers. I think nobody can answer the question better than you. Is Africa safe to travel in?
I like it. Yes and no.
Okay.
If you want me to be honest, yes and no.
I want you to.
Yeah. It's it's safer than many places in the world, for sure. And then Africa, again, Africa is many countries and territories. So, every country and territory is very different. For example, in Botswana, for me,
Yeah.
Botswana was the safest ever. But also, of course, through my own personal experience, it's safer than we think, but it's also not safe if you behave like an idiot. And I did behave like an idiot at some point. So let's be honest. I remember I just got like malaria when I was in Botswana and it was horrible. I was alone like a little shit in my tent and I'm going to die. I have no network. I can't even say goodbye to my family. It was horrible. And then I could make it thanks to my treatment. And then I went to Namibia. And because I still had probably the symptoms of malaria. So I was still very, a bit daisy and a bit weird and very tired and stuff. So I was doing like shit. I was behaving like very badly. I was getting out of the car, talking to everybody. And I was obviously at some point, they took advantage of me. So yeah, it's just because I was behaving weird that probably I attracted problems. But it's way safer than we think. But again, it's your gut, and your luck. Let's be honest. If, for example, you tell me, okay, Charline, would you rather camp in the middle of France or in the middle of Africa? I would say Africa, because for me, it's nothing is safer than the wild, I think.
Interesting. That's very interesting perspective. And I mean, are there any parts of Africa that you would say, I don't want to go back there?
No, nowhere. I know.
And is
No, I
there
want
any
to go
place?
back everywhere.
Okay, that was my next question. Like, I'm quite avoid asking you what's your favorite place, but where would you go back to in a hurry?
Uh, I hesitate between two. I would say or Botswana or Uganda.
Okay, and why is that?
Because Botswana is the place where my love for Africa was born when I was there for the first, like 4 years ago. So I will never forget. And also, I love the history of Botswana. I love the people there. I love the safety. I love the fact that people are colorblind in Botswana. Because let's be honest, skin color is a big issue in Africa sometimes. Let's be
Yeah,
very honest. So we judge you because you're white, or we judge you because you're black, or we judge you because you're colored, or Indian, or Chinese. So it's for me a problem. In Botswana, it was the only country in Africa, through my own personal experience again, where people are the most colorblind. So for that reason, I like it because I could pretend to be African there. And whereas in Uganda and other countries, it was different. But in Uganda, what I like about Uganda is, like, for me, it's the real Africa from my imagination. And also because I don't know, I love everything there. There is no roots. There is no roads. There is, like, everything is so wild. Everything is so authentic and challenging, and challenges makes me feel alive. So I like it. I love it
yeah.
there. It's beautiful.
And I mean, you've done things that the normal visitor to Africa is not going to get to experience, right? Because you've had the time and you've been driving yourself and you've made yourself go to areas where a normal visitor will not be able to access. But in terms of touristy things in Africa, did you do any stuff like that? And which experiences for you were the most remarkable?
Okay, so if we talk about, like, the not the cliche, but like the stereotypes of, like, for example, oh, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Cape Town. Sorry, I love Cape Town, huh? But I've
No.
been to Cape Town and I climbed the Table Mountain. I'm like, my friend, you also have the Drakensberg. I mean, the
Yeah.
Table Mountain is beautiful, huh? I'm not saying it's not,
Yeah.
huh? It's
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's not
Yeah.
only about the Table Mountain and Cape Town. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Even if the Western Cape is so gorgeous and safer and beautiful and very neat, and it's beautiful, but South Africa is much more than that. It's
Yeah.
maybe just 1%. So yeah, I've been to the Table Mountain and stuff, but I don't really enjoy touristic places because it's full of stereotypes, and I don't think it's good for tourists and also for the local population. Of course, I've been to the Victoria Falls and stuff, but I don't really enjoy. I prefer remote places and where it's more quiet.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I had another very good question, which has now left my mind. Did you make a lot of friends? People that you're still contact with, like I'm talking about during your travels in Africa, with people either that were also doing overlanding or with people that were actually living in the places you visited? Are there friendships that you've made that are lasting?
So tourist people, when I say tourist, I'm not talking about like South Africans going to, other places in Southern Africa and stuff. But for me, they're not tourists, they're African. Because, sometimes I just want to say that, to mention that. Sometimes we say, oh, because they're white, they're not Africans. Yes, Africans and also people from the English roots and stuff are African to me. The skin color doesn't mean anything. So for me, they're not tourists. But in terms of tourists, people from Europe or America or Australia or whatever, no, I don't make any friends. I didn't make any friends because I was not looking for them. Everything, I'm going to be very rude. And if people, they hear me now, they're going to be so pretentious, but, I'm being French. No, it's just, for me, it's pointless. Like
Yeah,
traveling to a place like Africa and to
yeah,
talk to people where you're coming from. If I want to talk to people I'm coming from, I will be traveling with someone,
yeah,
or
yeah,
anywhere in Europe or whatever. I was not looking for that. I was looking for a neutral place with neutral people and to understand. So no,
yeah.
I have no friends from other countries than in Africa.
And I mean, you must have made a lot of African friends during your
And yeah, I
travels.
was about to tell you that a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, I noticed that in following you online that you did connect a lot with local people, and you seem to take a lot of in from that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my oldest son is now 18 years old, and he's finishing school this year,
nice,
and he's been influenced a lot by sort of my career path and that of my ex-wife. We're both in the travel industry, and
nice.
he's also it's a very good friend of mine, whose name is Kingsley Holgate. I don't know if you've heard of him. And so
Mm.
my son this idea that he wants to become an adventurer.
Lucky.
So I'm very interested in what you would say to somebody who says, I want to become an adventurer, but I don't know where to start. What advice would you give them?
I don't know, because it would mean that I'm an adventurer myself to give advice. And I don't consider myself as an adventurer at all.
I think you might, I think some people might argue with you there.
Okay, let's start it. I don't know. I don't know. People, it's very funny because people, every time they talk to me, they're like, oh, Charline, you're so brave. You're so brave. You're so courageous. You're so blah, 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 blah. I'm not. I'm not. No, I'm serious. I'm not. Because if you're brave, it means that you are scared and you do it anyway.
Yeah,
Me, the situation in my case, I
yeah,
was doing it because I had to. I needed it. Otherwise, I could have died of depression. I had to do that. I needed it. Before going to Africa, I remember my family, my mom, oh, I will never see you again. You're going to die. They're going to kill you, to rape you, to kidnap you. And then like my grandmother, and they're also Italian, so they're very, it's theater. And
yeah,
we will never see you, and blah. And many people, even South Africans, no, stop, don't
yeah,
do that. Ah, come on, it's not lekker. It's like it's going to be so dangerous. So I mean, come on. You could tell me anything in your head, like, oh yeah, I know one people, he was killed 3 times. Okay, it didn't matter because I
yeah,
had to do it anyway. It was stronger than anything else in the world. And so I can't really advise people. The only thing I can tell you is first, listen to your heart. If the desire to become an adventurer or to do anything about adventure, if it's stronger than all the critics and the love of your parents, then go for it. You're made for it. If you still negotiate and stuff, you're maybe, think twice, you know? This is the only thing I can tell.
yeah. And I mean, you've got a very big online following. I don't know if I can answer
Well,
this question,
yeah.
ask this question, and you can answer it if you want or not. But
Okay.
how do you, how do you afford it? I mean, that's a big thing for people. Like, I would love to do that, but how am I going to pay for it?
Oh yeah, that's the biggest question. This question, I received this question. Oh yeah, that's she's not alone. That's probably the husband paying for her. Or I received stuff like, no, how do they say that in English? Like she's the daughter of her dad. It's daddy's money. Blah blah.
Yeah,
And I'm like, my friend, I'm almost 40 years old. Okay, I look maybe young, but I'm almost 40.
yeah,
So it's not daddy's money. I wish. I told my dad, actually. I was daddy. They all say that. And I'm like, I wish you can give me some money. But he's like, never. Anyway, family issues. But no, okay. I actually already say that. But so it doesn't matter if I say it again because I assume 100%.
Mm.
When I was younger, I almost lost my dad from a heart attack. So he basically had a heart attack in front of me. I was 16 years old. And it really shocked me a lot because, well, my dad was not my best friend, to be honest, but he was my dad. And so for me, it was like this big guy, almost 2 meters tall, very strong. And having a heart attack and being clinically dead, it was a very big shock for me. So when I saw that, I don't know, I started to save money a lot. So I started to work at the age of 15, so a year before.
Mm.
And from my 16 years old, and then I was like, okay, now I will work, but also I will save money. So I was studying, working, I was doing that. I'm not a party girl. I've never been a party girl, so it was very helpful. And so I was like working, studying, working. And I was saving money. And until I got the job of my life, it's the only job I had. I don't want to talk about it. I told you already, but I worked for this company for like 16 years. So it was my only job in my life, but it was 16 years. So it was a lot. And I saved money a lot because I was like, okay, in my head, it was, I don't want to have a heart attack. If I have a heart attack, I want to have money to be treated properly because my dad couldn't. So I want to have enough money to have a single room in the hospital. And I'm sorry, it's very horrible what I'm saying, but it's my life.
Love it.
Yeah. So I was like, I
Yeah,
want a single bed, a bed only for me, a room only for me in the hospital. I want to have the best treatments and medicines and cares and everything.
Mm.
And so I could save like all my money. I saved it,
Okay, well,
almost all of it. Yeah.
amazing.
I never smoke. I never drink. I don't drink alcohol. But I'm still fun, huh? But I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't party. I don't go shopping. I hate shopping. Like, of course I need stuff. I buy stuff, right? Because otherwise I die. But very like what I need. And the rest, it was, we never know. Or if my family has a health issue or something, I can provide money for them and a good room in the hospital and everything. I was hypochondriac, but very high. I was in France. It's very good for that because it's quite cheap. But I was seeing the doctor every week almost because I was really scared to have a heart attack like my dad. So
Yeah,
I was saving a lot. And then my cousin passed away. And then I
yeah,
had this money on my bank account.
yeah.
And most of people in my family, they invest to buy a house or to do
Mm.
anything. And
Mm.
me, I never had a car, nothing, no house.
Yeah,
I never bought anything, never invested. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm going to invest in my life and I'm going to
yeah.
go to Africa.
It's amazing. I love that. I mean, you do what everyone talks, like opting out and actually following your dreams. I think it's
Mm,
absolutely inspiring.
mm,
Charlene, where do you go from here? I mean, now you've traveled around a lot of Africa. I saw that you were in the Middle East again. Now
mm,
you're in France. I mean, what's
mm.
next? What happens next in Charlene's life?
Well, that's a question I like now.
Yeah.
because it makes me forget about the present and focus about the future. Well, it's been very tough since I'm back, because I'm back since almost 6 months now. And it's very, 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 very difficult. Of course, I can't complain, because I could realize the adventure of my life. I could realize a dream of mine. And very, very few people are able to do that. So I'm very blessed, and I'm very grateful about like my experience. But the fact today, if I promise you, if I knew I would be so feeling unwell and sad, I would have probably never gone to Africa, because the aftermath is horrible. And it's been really tough, because imagine when you go 2 weeks to Africa and you learn so much and you already start to feel disconnected. Imagine after 18 months roaming around anywhere you can, meeting so many different people, the opposite of your frame of references. It's really, really, really tough. It's giant gap. And even with my family, it's been very hard. Many people in my family, I don't talk to them anymore. Or they don't talk to me anymore, actually. So I'm losing people almost every day sometimes, because they don't really understand what my adventure and things I'm sharing and stuff. And it's difficult, because I completely understand them in a way, but in another way, I don't want to understand them. And I think maybe sometimes I'm very rude, because I don't want to have time with bullshit. And I probably sound very rude now, but it's really the case. The plan now is like, I want to go back on the road. Financially, it's a big struggle. I won't hide it. It's a giant struggle, because I will have to find a solution very soon. But the less I have, the freer I feel. So I want to risk it.
Yeah.
So the plan is to go back on the road, to change Rafiki. I was lucky enough to get sponsors out of the blue. People contacted me again, African people, I look up and being, Charline, are you looking for a camper? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yes. So I'm very lucky. These people are going to give me a camper for free. I'm saying everything. Huh? It's going to be for free, all equipped, everything inside, everything. So I don't know, it's a blessing from the sky, the universe. And from that, so it's going to happen the end of the month. And from that, we'll see. It's very difficult.
There's a couple of sayings by which I try to live my life. And the one is that opportunity dances with those who are already on the dance floor.
Ah, putain, I like it. I didn't know this one.
Yeah. And
I like it.
And I mean, when you start doing something, right? Like no matter what it is, if you start doing something, it's almost like when you do it with your heart, when it's true, the universe seems to conspire to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So no, that was a question that I wanted to ask you. Like, how can people help you? I mean, have you set up a sort of a GoFundMe page, or do you actively seek out sponsorships? Or, I mean, I want
I'm not.
like I want that for me.
Yeah.
Like
The sponsor thing, the sponsoring part, people contact me. So I'm not feeling legitimate to contact people, because I feel very like I'm nobody, right? I can't be like, oh, hi, I'm Charline. Can you please sponsor me? I'm nobody to do that. So I'm very lucky. People contact me. So that's great. In terms of, no, I don't have a GoFundMe, because it makes me very uncomfortable. Of course, I'm trying to educate my brain and to understand that I spend a lot of time creating content and giving tips and recommendations and trying to detail the whole adventure, the Rafiki or anything about this adventure. So, of course, I try to understand that maybe I deserve a little bit of compensation for that.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. But a GoFundMe, just a GoFundMe,
mm.
I don't feel comfortable to ask money from people now. I mean, I have a Patreon account, but again, I'm creating content on it. But just
Yeah.
receiving money to receive money, I would love it. Look, I would love to have 10,000 euros now, even more. But I feel if it's weird, it's weird. You can't say, "Hey, Michelle, can you give me some money for what? For just like that?" No, it's weird.
I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, and I've really, really loved chatting with you today, and I thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And I,
I
I
really
want to.
enjoyed.
That's good. I'm glad. I want to a bit of a philosophical question. Like, if you like, when we started off, the conversation was about why you started doing what you're doing, right? And you've been so open and so genuine about the reason, and that was a number of years ago. And I imagine that you're a different person now. How would you describe the Charline who first started this journey and the Charline now? How are you different now?
I want to be this Charline again. I want to be the Charline I was when I started the adventure because she didn't know about everything, all the magic she was about to discover. So I wish I can be her again. The innocence, the being naive and all that. I would love to have this again. Because now the problem, in a way, is great, but in another way is not great. Now I know danger. I know magic. I've seen magic already. Of course, there are many other places in the world, but the fact I was so innocent and so naive, and so I want to be that again.
That's amazing. Well, Charlene, I look forward to following your travels, and
Thank
I
you.
want you go next and where your road leads you, literally and figuratively. And yeah, if you're ever back in South Africa, we got to go have
I will.
we can't have a
That's the
beer
plan.
because we don't, but you can have a water and I'll have a beer.
I like apple juice.
Good. Apple juice it is. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Charlene.
much.
Yeah, it was really nice to catch up with you, and I really say hi to Rafiki for me.
I will. Thank you so much. Thank you 1,000 times.